up, everybody? It's Vin. You might remember me as Dre's curmudgeon in crime, but today we're switching things up. It's a special episode with my good friend Ampy. What's up, man?
Hey, glad to be part of this. I guess this is kind of an audio debut, but thank you so much for having me on.
Ampy's Fine Time debut. I'm super hyped about this. This idea came about because one night I was walking around the pier when all of a sudden I wondered, what can we do for Fine Time? How can we provide a fine time for the masses? And so here we are. I wanted to tap into our knowledge and our history with rhythm games, something that we love near and dear. And there's still a thing. There's practically a new version of Taiko no Tatsujin like every other year.
Yeah, they just keep on coming. I mean, there's no sign of any of this stopping. So given that we've both done so much of this over the years, I mean, sounds like the perfect opportunity to take a look back and talk about our faves.
That was the idea for sure. And here's the big question. Why do we care about rhythm games? So like what kind of got you into the genre?
Well, I mean, just about every game I've played, I always loved the music there. I'd just be listening to songs from a bunch of old games and such. So when you add that rhythm part to it too, then that just makes it even more fun to deal with. You're actually tying the action to it, just doing some really fun stuff. And you usually get some really cool like audio-visual mixes going on too. You'll get some interesting art styles. You'll get a lot of emphasis on that to kind of bring the whole experience together.
Definitely, yeah. It's all about sort of like how these seemingly disparate elements come together as like a whole, right? And the way they do so is really interesting to me. These games often juxtapose pure simplicity with like wacky presentation, right? And in general, these games are rather easy to pick up and play, but they also have a high skill ceiling, so they're hard to master, right? And furthermore, to put things bluntly, they give developers a space to do weird shit, right? They really lean to spectacle, and it's a genre that works across platforms. Whereas like some genres in the past may have worked better on like higher spec hardware, like arcade hardware, such as like fighting games, driving games, or light gun games. Rhythm games have really worked well across platforms, whether it's at home or at the arcade or even handhelds, right? And we'll get into plenty of those. And it's just a genre that's like ubiquitous, right? That's like part of the appeal.
Yeah, that's what's so great about it. It feels like there's just been more ways for it to develop from there even. So getting out of the arcades and into handhelds, there's been a whole lot possible. We'll get into some of these in particular, like some of those elements that came from the arcade to the consoles and handhelds. It's going to be a nice little trip. I'm looking forward to it.
I'm looking forward to it as well, for sure. And I also have to pose the question, how did you get started? What's your background with rhythm games?
So it comes down to one thing, and that is Dance Dance Revolution. That's what kickstarted it all for me way back. That'd be 20 years ago now at this point. So like,
oh my God.
Right in between like Max 2 and Extreme, that's when I went from being like too timid to actually step on the machine to, okay, I kind of like this. Let's actually try this out. And it helped that they were coming out with the home versions too. So I got like DDR Max for the PS2 around that time. And I got myself a little soft pad. And then I got myself a better soft pad because the regular ones are not the best. But
like the super slim ones by Konami, right? That like slid around the carpet.
Good luck trying to do anything like remotely complicated on those. It's hard.
Yeah.
It's basically been a constant for me in some form, again, over the past like 20 years. I did do a few other things around like the mid-2000s, like some arcade things such as Guitar Freaks, Drum Mania, a little bit of 2DX, though that was never really my like superstar kind of thing. But later on, I got into a couple of the rhythm titles for, say, the Nintendo DS. And yeah, we'll get into some of those in some good time as well.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And as I often like to joke, 20 years is probably older than your average Twitch streamer nowadays.
Yep.
So these games have been around for a while. Yeah, and much like yourself, I love DDR. But before that, I enjoyed PaRappa the Rapper, much like most PlayStation owners. That was a game that really got me into the whole genre. I think it's probably one of the first rhythm games, if I'm not totally mistaken, right?
Oh, yeah. I can't really think anything that went that route before then.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some deep digs that you can make, but that was really the earliest notable example to me personally. but I sporadically play DDR. I played at like a cousin's import PlayStation, like when we were kids. Think that was probably the original version, if I'm not totally mistaken. I also played a Disneyland trip in middle school. There's your age timestamp. Speaking of decades ago, but it really wasn't until Mario DDR Mix in 2006 when it really went hard on the genre. It was actually hard to find when it first came out in 2005. So like like the print run was relatively small, so they reprinted it. I'm like, why not? Why not? What's the worst that could happen? So that was something that I did. And from then to about 2016, for like a solid 10ish years, I was playing DDR like a lot, like at their arcade, right? So I was even doing like crazy trips, like public transit trips for like several hours just to get to like arcades to play and stuff like that. Which seems like forever ago now. That was like pre-Rona, right?
Oh yeah, some real memories though there.
Yeah, absolutely. And the reason why I say until about 2016 because that was when Overwatch came out, so I kind of say that cut into my time a little bit, hysterically enough. But yeah, it was really like until like the Rona era that was when I really played these games like a bunch. So yeah, this actually ties into our next point, which is how we actually met. We actually met at our school's DDR club, which sounds like a crazy timestamp nowadays. Like I can't really imagine that most college campuses have a DDR club of all things. It's like the niche of niches.
Absolutely. Like even then, I don't know how many people were doing something like that, but hey, there's one there, and that's where this kind of started.
It really did, right? And I distinctly remember playing during that the school's DDR tournament. I was still like learning the game at that point, and yeah, I think that was the first time I saw you, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm pretty sure that's it too. Like that's where I first learned about the club, and I was going back to the dorms and it was like, hey, we've got a DDR tournament here. It's like, wait, there's a DDR tournament? Wait, there's a club with this? Wait, I can keep playing this after I was already doing it in high school? Sign me up, please. And then at that point, we basically both were regulars the entirety of our stay there. It just kind of blossomed up into some even more things. Like if you want to get into a couple of those, I guess.
Yeah, we brought our DDR setups during each week, right? And it sort of became a general hangout spot at your apartment afterwards. We played fighting games and Rock Band and whatnot. The sort of recurring joke was that we often played like Street Fighter 4 after club meetings. So that was pretty fun. I think we did other fighting games too. I think I brought like Mortal Kombat versus DC Universe once, and everyone's very confused. Do you remember that?
Yes. Oh my god, I remember playing through that. That was very interesting. Yes.
Yeah. That's a interesting way of putting it. I don't know about that one. It's a good timestamp, but past that, IDK dog. But yeah, it was a good time, and it sort of like brought all of us together, just like meeting up at the club and meeting afterwards. It was a good time for sure.
This is actually one thing I want to kind of bring up if I can, but that's what's so cool about rhythm games too. Or just, I mean, it goes to other things, but it's really a cool way to actually get some friends together, do something together as a group, do some really cool things, and keep up. I mean, that's what it started for us, and things have continued to be pretty cool from there.
Absolutely, yeah, for sure. It's like it's a relatively some rhythm game spaces can be relatively niche, but in that way, like people just start hanging out together. Like even though like I'm not currently playing like all the time, sometimes I still like head over to people's places to have like food or like watch parties, or we'll just like meet up in the city, have like ramen and stuff like that. So I mean, like as with all things, these kind of like blossom to like other types of activities, right? It's not just literally us grinding it out on a dance mat for hours on end. I mean, you can do that too if you want, but like
yeah, but it's about the whole complete experience. It's just kind of like the side salad to the main course, if you will.
Yeah, I think that's a great way of putting it for sure. Yeah, how often would you say you keep up with the genre nowadays?
So I did get really back into DDR because back before I moved, there was a round one that opened up right nearby. So that just was a whole game changer. It's like, okay, I'm going to actually play new DDR songs and not just the old stuff I've got from ages ago. And I got into this really big trying to do some new stuff. And I met some pretty cool folks, and that got things back going up. And that was the end of 2019. And, well, that didn't last long, unfortunately. So,
yeah, bro. Yeah, that's what the timing though. The timing though. It's just kind of funny how it works. Yeah, and for further context, Round One is a pretty ubiquitous Japanese arcade gaming chain nowadays. They also have other things like bowling and karaoke, and some place have darts. I've never tried their darts. Their karaoke is aight. Yeah, nice. I've never tried their darts, but they often have like the latest cabinets like that you will probably almost not really see elsewhere, except maybe like Dave and Buster's nowadays. So really ultimately you have to go to like either a Dave and Buster's or like a Round One to like play some of these games, right? And but yeah, I haven't really played as much in the Rona era. I still play DDR every so often if I am near like a Round One, which is usually just like once a year, since nowadays I just stay inside. But I still play some DG Max and Project Diva like here and there. Though in general, it's a little on and off, right?
No, understandable. Like, sometimes I'll actually throw up one of those old console DDRs I used to play, and like I try to see if there's any new rhythm games. If I'm going to a con, they got something there. Just there's all these new titles coming out, even now. So I'll go there and it's like, wow, I've never even seen this thing before. How does it work? And, well, usually it's a good time.
Oh, it's fantastic. Yeah, we'll get into some of those deeper digs later on in the show. So yeah, it's the genre is ever present. It's still like a thing that has plenty of new titles coming down the pipeline. So just to get in some details really, really quick, we're not going to be talking about every single game out there because there are a ton, and we'd be spending like all of Fine Time trying to figure out like which games to talk about. And so far as the title of the show, Rhythm Gaming Oddities and Obscurities, we're sort of loosely stretching the word oddity. You can safely assume we're not really going to talk about like Guitar Hero, Rock Band, Dance Central, Just Dance, Beat Saber, like the popular games. And that's not because they're bad or anything. Like, they're perfectly fine. It's just that we wanted to sort of reflect upon some of the other content that the genre has provided over time. Furthermore, we're predominantly going to talk about console and handheld games with a handful of mobile and arcade games here and there. We're not going to be totally talking about arcade exclusives the whole time, though we probably could if we wanted to.
Oh, we definitely could, but we're not going to this time.
Exactly. We also have to draw the line in that we're not going to include games with heavy musical elements like Res, Luminous, and Meteos, so on and so forth. I'm actually a raging fan of these games. I could talk about Res like all day, but even though like it has a rather omnipresent musical motif, it's not really a music game, so we're not going to include it. And in general, we also recommend these oddities if you can get their hands on them. We'll mention caveats as they come up. So I figured we might as well get started with some of Ampy's favorite oddities throughout rhythm gaming history, and I'll let you lead off here.
All right, thanks. So first one I want to bring up is Theatrhythm Final Fantasy Curtain Call. Technically it's a sequel to the first one, but they went all out for this. It's one of my favorites as far as handheld stuff goes, because even if you've only done a little bit of Final Fantasy here and there, there's just so many great tunes from that series. And it's great if you are a fan of Final Fantasy, because you can make your own favorite team out of all the characters you've come to know and love over the years. And hey, you might even make a few new favorites. I know that there's a few there that I hadn't played, or characters that I wasn't familiar with, but hey, let's give them a try and could end up liking some new favorites.
You're telling me you haven't played every single one of the 13 the then 13 mainline games and those oddballs like Final Fantasy Mystic Quest?
Oh, yeah, God forbid I
the shocker, the surprise.
Yeah, oh no, I haven't done Type 0. And they got some Type 0 characters in there, too.
I completely forgot. Yeah, weren't they in like Ace and Joker and like other cards or something like that? I think.
I know Ace for sure. I don't know about the others, but yeah, like that game is a mystery to me. But hey, I know they're in this too. So, and hey, if you like Benjamin, Benjamin is here.
Yeah, our good old protagonist from Final Fantasy Mystic Quest. Everyone remembers Benjamin, the ultimate fantasy hero. He's gonna save the day, Mr. Benjamin. I also thought that name was like really weird, but yeah, I don't know, but.
Well, for Final Fantasy, definitely. And also, for some reason, he's incredibly busted in this game.
He's super busted.
Super good.
Yeah, I think his like attack is like maxed out or something like that. And speaking of like stats, like that's part of the game too. Like there's actually like a roleplay element to it. You can like set up your teams, you can assign abilities, and that's really sets this game apart from like a lot of his brethren, right?
Oh yeah, and like they've actually got a few different game modes there too. They got what are called, I think, these field stages and battle stages, and then also events. So they got like different play styles depending on what you're doing for each of those different things.
I forgot about the events, yeah.
So this is a touchscreen game. You've got your stylus, you are poking the screen, you are dragging the stylus on the screen, and it's a lot of, matching beats, doing directional swipes, and also doing holds that you're directing kind of up and down the screen. So this is one of those elements that kind of carried over from the arcade. There were already starting to be a few touchscreen elements going on there. And hey, we've got a touchscreen handheld. Let's do some of that at home.
Using the touchscreen on the 3DS? Oh my god. Oh my goudy. And but it goes into the whole idea that this is actually a very intuitive game to control. Like you can use the buttons if you want to. I think you can use the circle pad to like do notes, but like honestly, I prefer just using the touchscreen here. I thought that was like the most intuitive way to go about it.
Oh yeah, I agree. Like that's the way to do it if you're going to play this. But it's pretty easy to pick up, get a sense for what it's doing, and if you're there for like the challenge, they've got some really nasty things in there if you really just want to take it to the limit. But none of it's like you got to go in the deep end there. They ease you in, like you've got 3 different levels of difficulty. So you don't have to just start off like doing all kinds of swipes in every direction or anything. They ease you in slowly.
You don't have to get carpal tunnel off the get-go playing this.
It's a miracle.
Yeah, right? There's a lot of content in this game. Do you have a favorite dream team of characters, if you can remember one?
Oh, yeah. Okay. My favorites, well, the team that I was kind of my all-around go-to team had Terra from FF6. We got Zack from FF7 and Crisis Core specifically.
I forgot he's in this game. Oh my god.
Yeah, we got Zack, baby. Zack Fair. And we got Zidane from FF9 and also Ishtola from 14.
Yeah, you spin the gamut, yeah.
Yeah, so these are all characters I'm a fan of in some way or another, and turns out they're actually pretty darn good as a whole in this game. That's actually the cool thing. Every character has their own little sets of abilities. Like, some characters, like Terra's more magic-based, so she'll have spells like Firaga and such. Whereas Zack's got all these, like, added cut and other just physical moves. And the neat thing is everyone's got some kind of unique ability, too. Like, Terra gets Trance. It makes her super powerful. Zidane gets Grand Lethal, which just does a massive attack. So it's a nice little way to kind of differentiate the characters beyond just stats.
Some of the battle scenes, I think you're literally fighting like enemies, if I'm not totally mistaken, right?
Oh yeah, you're like going through like Cactuars and Marlboros, and then you've even got these little things where if you hit a bunch of taps or swipes, you get to summon something.
That's right, you can summon, yeah.
You got like Ifrit and Ramu, and they even put Knights of the Round in there too, so you get all kinds of fancy little cutscenes with that.
Oh my god, I completely forgot they're in there. And they don't take like 2 minutes or what? You don't have to wait 2 minutes for the play out or whatever, right?
They just squeeze that whole thing in like 2 seconds of blades and magic and all that stuff. It's great.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, this game really is a love letter to Final Fantasy. But it's not just Final Fantasy. There's some really crazy DLC for this game, right? So like I'll always remember some of this DLC because they do some really deep digs. There was a lineup of Encore DLC at the end of 2014 to like it went till about the beginning of 2015-ish, that include like other like deep digs for like Square franchises, right? So like had like Saga, Mana, Live Alive, which is very timely nowadays, right? It predated Live Alive's actual release in North America.
Yeah, I'd forgotten that they had that in there too, but like, yeah, now with the new re-release, perfect timing.
It really is, right? And there was Chrono Trigger, Xenogears, there was some Nier, I think Bravely Default as well. So all this like really, really crazy, right? And what really blew me away was how it includes stuff from Trials of Mana before it was even known as Trials of Mana. So like Pal and Sacrifice Part 3, which are banging songs, were included as part of this DLC set, but they're written as Seiken Densetsu 3 parenthesis Mana series. And I was like, whoa! I've been like a raging Trials of Mana fanboy. So it was like the fact that this came out well before like the E3 2019 announcement of like Trials of Mana North America via Collection of Mana, that was like really crazy to me, right? That just sounded like a raging fanboy, but
well, hey, you're the one who introduced me to the Mana series. I got you to thank for having a little bit of knowledge as far as some of this stuff goes. So honestly,
oh yeah,
awesome.
Oh, you're very welcome. Those were some fun runs. Yeah, we did Trials of Mana at a Fanime hotel room in 2016. That was fun. I guess I should wrap myself out. So I also had some favorite characters. But I was less diverse than you. I tended to spam like Final Fantasy 4 and 6 a lot. So I had like Cecil, Kane, Rydia, Terra, and I had Benjamin. He was buff.
Benjamin, yeah!
The fantasy hero Benjamin, and Ramza from Final Fantasy Tactics. He was pretty cool too, yeah. And I don't know if I had like a dream team. I kind of just rotated like characters a lot, like because like you could like level them up to like level 99 or like whatever. So I just like rotated a bunch. But yeah, it was fun messing around with characters, man. And like, there's a really frivolous joke that we have to bring up, which is
please do.
It's a bit of a tangent, but we were looking at the original Theatrhythm Final Fantasy on 3DS, so we were perusing the DLC catalog, right? And one of my favorite songs in Final Fantasy history is from the original game, Matoya's Cave. So we're perusing this catalog, the whole list, and so I had intended to say now is the time for Matoya's Cave, but for some reason I cut myself off. So it actually had come out as Now's the Time for Fuck, or I think it's like Now's the Time for Fuck.
Yes, oh God, I remember that. Oh God, that was amazing. It was a beautiful moment.
So you like looked at me and was like, "What are you talking
about? What is this? I was not prepared for fuck."
Yeah. So not fucking, but now is the time for fuck.
Yes.
Yeah, so my original intent was buried beneath my own distraction. It was really funny. We still say it to this day. Oh, man.
There was another Theatrhythm, and there was one for Dragon Quest. Now, admittedly, I just barely even did any of that. I think it was actually just... I played it through you originally, but I mean, I'm not nearly as familiar with the Dragon Quest series, but it's got the same kind of elements and gameplay. It actually kind of makes me wonder why they haven't done another one of these in some way.
Yeah, it's sort of it's a really weird oddity and obscurity, right? Just because it never came here, like we never got it. We were never really given a reason as to why that was the case. Some people speculate the symphonic arrangements were like made things kind of nebulous, but we will never actually like know. But this game is cool. I think it spanned like Dragon Quest to Dragon Quest 10, if I'm not totally mistaken. So much like Curtain Call, it really spanned like a pretty wide amount of history, right? But as to whether it'll happen again, I mean, that would be cool because obviously Dragon Quest is like legendary, right? In terms of music, in terms of like the whole spiel, it like kickstarted JRPGs, right? So I mean, it'd be great. But to have a successor, but it's hard to say.
Yeah, but we just got to wait and see. I mean, maybe depending on how certain things go, maybe it'll come back. And actually, we should probably get into that too. There is going to be another Theatrhythm Final Fantasy coming. That's right. We've got Theatrhythm Final Bar Line. So that's going to be the big old re-release coming out for the Switch pretty soon. I need to double check the dates, but it's definitely on the way.
it's like early mid next year if I'm not totally mistaken. But yeah, like the name is still really funny to me because it doesn't have Final Fantasy in the name, so it like throws me off. But I guess the enduring question is like this game has a lot of songs, right? So like Curtain Call had like over 300 songs, and then this has over 500. But the caveat is that to get access to all the 500 plus tracks, you have to shell out $100, right? US.
Yeah.
And that's like the tricky part, because like Curtain Call is one of the best values in rhythm gaming, but like this sort of blows things up price wise. So like, can we possibly get like excited? It's like hard to say, right?
Yeah, like I really want to believe, because I was so into Curtain Call when it came out, and who knows if they bring in a couple new things in this too, along with all the old stuff, it'd be great. Although, yeah, the price point is going to be kind of a tough sell. Although, I mean, if you look at some other music games out there, some of that could really add up too. So it could arguably be in the same vein. But yeah, like it's one of those things where I kind of want to wait and see where they'll go with this, and what else possibly could they be adding on top of what's already there.
Don't ask us how much we spent on DDR, because we don't actually know.
Oh God, I would have no clue if you asked. Trust me.
Yeah, I'll have to fire up a Google spreadsheet for that one. But yeah, this is a really interesting thing for me, because it sort of has like a lot of songs, some of the prior games DLCs coming back seemingly again as DLC, which is like kind of a little weird to me personally, but like
yeah.
But again, like we know that there's a lot of stuff coming to this game franchise wise, right? The World Ends With You is in this game. All the aforementioned Squares series, they're in this game. The last two packs, however, are currently designated as question mark. And it's like, do you have any idea what this could possibly entail? Because like it's like some might say Bravely, but I don't know.
I mean, there's a couple other directions they could go. Like honestly, they've exhausted a lot of the really obvious picks, but there's still other areas they could go. Weren't there a couple you had in mind?
There's a certain part of me that digs deep down into like history and like that wonders if like Front Mission has a chance, given that those re-releases are on the horizon. I don't really think it actually has a chance. And there's other things that don't actually have a chance, like Brave Fencer Musashi and like Musashi Samurai Legend. I don't think they actually have a chance, but like I think it's probably gonna be like Bravely 2 or something like that. But like which I've heard from my understanding that the Bravely series is good music, but again, like I think I'm just too crusty, so I don't really have realistic expectation.
Yeah, I mean, I have no clue what the last ones are going to be. I mean, that seems reasonable to me. Like, there's definitely some great things you could draw from that, but I mean, it's one of those things we're just going to have to wait for the time being and see what they end up going with.
I think the DLC is slated to be released over like a year or something like that. So yeah, we'll see. It'll be a good time. We're gonna move right along to one of your favorite Nintendo franchises. Not to totally rat you out, but to totally rat you out, you should talk about one of your favorite Nintendo franchises.
That's right. I should talk about Rhythm Heaven. Now, I know that Rhythm Heaven's been mentioned here before, and I know it's got a little bit of a controversial history going on here, but I want to bring my side to things and just talk about this because there's a lot I really love here.
I'm going to hide in the other room while you talk about this, and we'll let Dre get to this one when the time is right. I'm just kidding. I'm not going anywhere. That would be weird. But yeah, you should get into how you started getting into Rhythm Heaven.
Okay, well, first time I really saw it was at the Penny Arcade Expo way back when. It was on a demo station, and I played it, and I just got completely destroyed. I didn't know what on earth I was doing, and I just couldn't really get the hang of it.
It's a little different from DDR, right?
It's just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
And hey, we're talking about more DS games with tapping and swiping. This has that in abundance. But later I did get that. I got the DS one, which was Rhythm Heaven here. I believe it was Rhythm Heaven Gold in Japan.
Yeah, that's correct, yeah.
After the fact, I imported the GBA original, which is just Rhythm Tengoku. And then I got Rhythm Heaven Fever for the Wii, and Mega Mix was the most recent one on the 3DS. So a little bit about how this works. You've got all these short little mini games that are oriented around rhythm, music, and other fun little things. So the whole WarioWare comparison does seem fairly apt. I think the same kind of, wasn't it the same artist that worked on both of them too?
Yeah, I believe that was the case.
Yeah, so for those, you've got a few different styles of things. Some of them are just, okay, it gives you an audio cue, and you have to do some kind of action, whether it's a tap or a tap swipe or something like that. There's others where you get a little rhythm and you have to repeat it back, and others still where it has, so you keeping up some kind of constant rhythm, but every now and then you switch it up or do some extra little tap or beat.
Oh, yeah.
So you got all these different little styles, but what really makes it shine is you've got these super catchy tunes, and you've got just these really crisp visuals, these really funny scenarios. You'll be doing things like just whacking balls into a hole from a distance, or you'll be doing some kind of, there's one called like Tap Troop, where you have to keep up this little tap dancing line. That's one of those constant rhythm ones. And some of them just get really out there and zany, where you're like shooting down the enemy spaceships, or there's just all these really ridiculous fun scenarios. But it all comes together.
Oh, I'm sorry. Which one let you shoot down spaceships? I don't remember that.
I know it was one of the ones on the DS where you're like tapping the little rhythms out in the order that they appear and just shooting them down.
Oh, I must have blocked that one out of my head then, because the DS one's the only one I played. Sorry, go on.
All good. Yeah, so aside from that, they've got more than just the games there. Every now and then you've got what's called a remix stage. Like you get these in groups. So play 3 or 4 games and then, it's time for remix 1. So there it takes all the games you just played and puts them together into a brand new song. So sometimes the tempo will be a little bit different and you've got to adjust, and you'll just be rapid fire switching from one game to the next. So you've got to be ready for all the prompts there. And it gets even trickier later on when you get to some remixes. It'll be more than just those last few games. It'll be everything you've looked at, or like a substantial chunk of what you've seen before.
It's pretty tricky sometimes because those remix stages kind of assume that you remember how to play the prior game. So like sometimes the remix stages have a lot of catchy tunes, but I remember they can really throw you off if like you haven't like mastered stuff.
Oh,
that's
absolutely.
how I felt anyway.
Oh yeah, there's a couple where it just transitions from one to the next before you even know what's going on. It's like, wait, hold on, what's going on here? That is one thing I'll absolutely admit that can be difficult, is that some of these games you really need to play them a couple times to get a sense for what you're actually doing. Like they do give you a little practice tutorial beforehand, but it's a little different doing that and then actually doing the game itself.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. But even though the game is like really cutesy visuals, it can take a bit to actually get a hang of how to like play some of these things. So it can be a little trickier than it looks. Even though fundamentally the control scheme for Rhythm Heaven games is actually not that fundamentally complicated, but it's just the actual games themselves, they'll take you for a ride.
Oh yeah, and they get really hard later on, especially if you want to go for some of the bonus challenge things. So, for instance, one thing that the games are notorious for are these perfect chances that show up.
Oh god.
So, like, after you've cleared a bunch of games and maybe you've gotten a superb, which means you got most of it right, it'll say, hey, try for a perfect on this stage. But here's the thing. It doesn't matter if you've already done it perfect in the past. No, you got to do it now. And you can't just try as much as you want. You get 3 chances. So you start playing the game. You've got this little cute P up in the corner that's tapping along with your beats. And if you mess up once, then boom, P is gone, and you got to start over.
Yeah, that's right.
And again, 3 chances, and then it goes away. When is it coming back? I don't know. The game doesn't know. You just got to wait and see.
It doesn't also randomly pick a stage, like any stage that you've cleared.
Yep. I think it's everyone you've gotten a medal on. It's fair game to try and go for perfect. And then after you're done with that, you don't get one of those for a while. But then eventually one will show up, and it's like most of the time I'm going to go just make sure I can even do any of these. Then I'll go back and do that.
Yeah. It's one of the weird things about the game that was kind of strangely presumptuous, I guess. But like, I mean, if you know the games, that's great. But if you kind of, sort of, didn't get Superbs, then it's like, oh my goudy, right? So it's like it's pretty rough. But yeah. I mean, I also understand the appeal, but nonetheless, I cleared all 50 games in the DS game, and then I gave it to Dre. And you kind of imagine the rest.
So I've heard, yes.
I do have a fond memory of this game, though, really quick, in that I worked at the Japanese-style arcade for 4 years, and we actually had one of the very few Rhythm Tengoku arcade cabinets in America, right? So, which means for about like 12 to 16 hours a week, I heard this cat mini game, because the track screen before you pop credits in there, it goes through like different like toys, which I presume were like unlockables in like the Game Boy Advance version. So the cat mini game would have this little beat, right? It'd go like, let me try to reenact it. Give me a second here. It goes. Or something like that.
Yeah, that is absolutely, I remember that one perfectly. Just that's actually another thing I didn't bring up is, yeah, you do, after you get a bunch of medals from doing well on stuff, you get to unlock these cute little rhythm toys. And some of them are like the meow kind of thing going on. And then there's
meow.
Yes, precision meow. But then there'll be others like, play around with these just say little rhythm-based things, or here's a phone, dial some numbers. If you play some games, maybe you'll see a number somewhere. Try calling that. You never know what kind of mysteries you'll find. But those are fun little side things as well. And you've got a few other things like there's endless games you can unlock sometimes, where it's just kind of where it's like you go until you miss one. And those can be pretty fun too, although they can be really, really tense in another way too.
You better get perfect, sucker! Oh my god. The funny thing is that when you're describing the phone number stuff, that I thought you were like talking about a WarioWare game for a second.
I mean, there's quite a bit of crossover there, but like, yeah. But I mean, clearly, I'm a huge fan of the series, but I totally understand not being a big fan of how it does some certain things. Yeah,
absolutely, yeah, for sure. I agree there. We have more Nintendo shenanigans. Do you want to move on to the next esteemed cult hit?
Oh yeah, let's get into import territory. Let's talk about Ouendan, and for that matter, Elite Beat Agents.
Mm-hmm.
So this one, this was actually another Penny Arcade Expo thing. I'd heard about it before, and I ended up picking up just Ouendan at PAX. It was that and a few other games were some of the first ones I actually got as an import. But the great thing is there's pretty much no language barrier. You can just get a sense for what you need to do based on all the visuals it gives. And it's just completely wacky and absurd, and it's just, we're talking like ridiculous scenarios and visuals, and this has it in spades. It's great.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I gotta know, how exactly did he play Ouendan at PAX? Was it like a setup where it was like a booth or something? Like do you remember? I know that was like more than a decade ago, but like,
oh sure, I didn't actually get a setup there. They had there was one little booth there that was doing a bunch of Japanese import things. I picked up a couple other things there too, but Ouendan was one of the ones I remember most.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. And again, we didn't get Ouendan over here, but it was like this cult hit, right? And it was a game that really put DS importing on the map. So like alongside like Jump Superstars, it was really a big sort of ubiquitous thing among core DS players, right?
Oh yeah, and to get into a little bit about how it works, so you are part of this super elite cheerleading squad. So whenever anyone's got themselves into a pinch, like they're cramming for their entrance exams or they're about to perform a performance on stage and they are just really got to use the bathroom, whenever they're just in the worst situations, they give out a cry of Ouendan, and here come the cheerleading boys here to save your ass. They will just, doesn't matter what needs to be done, they will cheer until you can do anything under God's green earth. It is just absolutely ridiculous, and it is a really good time.
It is a really good time. The premise is so over the top and it's so damn goofy, but man, even now it's super memorable. And Elite Beat Agents, which was sort of I guess you could call it like a westernized version, quote unquote, but it's really a new version made from the ground up, right? It was also like a cheerleading squad of swords, but these agents were like going to places as directed by their commander to like help out people with the power of song. So I mean, it was basically the same idea with this really cool, slick, like audio visual motif, and it's really interesting. That's like a really crazy localization example, actually, isn't it?
It is. It's actually, I'm amazed that we even got that, because it seems like maybe it was a bit of a gamble, but people saw, like, I think how much Ouendan was getting some love, and localization happened, and we got ourselves another great game in that series.
Yeah, agents were go, right?
And
yeah.
just to bring up a little bit about how the actual game works, it's, hey, guess what? Another touchscreen stylus tapping game. We've got kind of a theme going.
Yeah, it's a theme.
So the way it works is you've got these little circles that'll show up on screen. You got to tap to beats. You got to drag the stylus certain patterns across the screen. And you've got it kind of broken into stages. You've just got to keep on hitting those, get them on the right timing. If you miss one, then you risk the meter running out, and your poor, desperate person in need of help is just... they meet an unfortunate end. We'll say that much.
They couldn't pass their exam because they didn't have the cheerleading squad behind them.
And things get even worse when the stakes rise and it's literally a world cataclysmic event by the end of it.
Yeah, those like last stages are so crazy, man.
But aside from the taps, occasionally you've got these stages, parts where the spinner shows up, and you've just got to keep spinning your stylus. I'm pretty sure I did some damage to my screen trying to do a couple of those.
Oh, I was paranoid. I was super paranoid. Yeah, but yeah, it gets you going, right? And it's like maybe Benjamin should be an elite beat agent. I mean, part of the Ouendan cheerleading squad.
Well, the true super hard mode, Benjamin mode. Let's see it happen. Come on, folks.
This game, speaking of hard modes, this actually does get pretty tough. Like the last stage of the original Ouendan, it took me actually a really long time to pass it. It's set to the popular J-Rock song "Ready, Steady, Go," and it's a cover of the well-known track. But like it really requires a bit of like persistence, and like it's a very sort of like continual beat, right? And the funny part is about this particular song was that you couldn't skip the intro at the time. So like there was like a 40-second intro every single time you started the track. So if you failed out in the middle of it, you had to like sit there for like 40 seconds.
That's the worst. Man, what happened to instant retries? Oh.
Yeah, right. Elite Beat Age has actually added, like, unless you skip it, but, like, at the time, there was like, oh my god, I failed at the end of Ready, Steady, Go, oh my god.
Oh, yeah, that's actually a good point. So Ouendan had, like, a bunch of really popular songs, like, that would be, like, popular in Japanese culture and the like. Yeah. And then when they localized it, we had... stuff like YMCA or like...
Yeah, YMCA, that's right.
The final song was Jumping Jack Flash. So like it was kind of funny because the same kind of stuff we've like, we heard a bunch of this stuff for ages. It's the same. They really got the parallels right from what I understand.
Yeah, they actually did a really good job curating the list for each of these games, really. I mean, like, some of the songs in Ouendan are like some pretty like well-renowned tracks, right? It wasn't then current songs necessarily. It was like a whole range of stuff over time, right? So that was really interesting to me. Like, I don't think I had known of like Linda beforehand, but like that's a song from like long ago. It's like decades ago, right? So I mean, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, they did a really good job with that. And one last thing I want to bring up, there was actually a sequel, and I don't mean Elite Beat Agents, there was Ouendan 2 with like a rival cheer squad and everything.
Yep.
But I never did get a hold of that one, but from what I understand, it had more of the same great stuff that made the other two games good.
Yeah, and actually, this is a really fascinating example of like porting features because Ouendan 2 came out in like 2007, which was after Elite Beat Agents, so it actually like ported over some of the features like skipping intros or whatever. I was like, whoa, holy smokes, that's like crazy. But yeah, it was fun, man. That was a pretty interesting sort of segment of DS history. Even though we didn't get them all of it here, but yeah, again, like they were pretty import friendly, and they might have inadvertently inspired another fan game name starting with O that the kids might be more aware of nowadays, but we won't get into that one.
Yeah, we're not going down that road. We'll just say that.
Yeah, but this is where it started, baby. You gotta tap those dots. Yeah, and it's not just about Nintendo though. I think you got one more game, not by Nintendo, that you want to bring up.
That's right. I want to bring up Frequency. So this is another one from the olden days of harmonics and the like. So I actually didn't do this until a little bit after the fact. To give you an idea, I got this as some used copy from a then dying Blockbuster. So how's that? How's that for dating?
Oh god, that's like layers of like crustiness, man. We're both curmudgeons in crime.
God, this is the crustiest of all universes.
I thought you were going to say the old era of 2001 is what I thought you were going to say.
Well, at this point, it might as well be.
Yeah. Oh my god, yeah. Some people use like N-20 as their cutoff for like quote unquote like old school games, but man, I don't feel good about that
one. Oof. Oh,
yeah, that's a rabbit hole. That's a rabbit hole. I'm sorry.
So anyway, with Frequency, I didn't really do that much of it even then, but I feel like I got to mention it because it's really a part of rhythm game history. Like a lot of the UI you see there, like it's got a lot of inspiration for some of the later games we'd see. And I don't even mean just Rock Band, but you get a lot of this lanes showing up and tapping in different areas. I mean, we could probably name a number of modern rhythm games that could owe their whole structure to this game.
Oh, yeah. And the same developers went on to do like Guitar Hero and Rock Band, right? So, I mean, there's a lot of that DNA in those games stemming all the way from Frequency.
Oh, absolutely. You get a lot of the same sort of layout there, and God, that's really saying something how far back that's going. That was what, 2005 when Rock Band first happened?
Back in the era of plastic instruments?
Yeah, just, oh, jeez. But anyway, yeah, it was pretty cool for its time there. Like, we've come a long way from there, but it's kind of one of those cornerstones for a lot of what came after.
It really was a cornerstone, right? And this game is not currently available on anything, so it's actually pretty hard to access, but its sequel, Amplitude, actually is available on the PlayStation Store, which also follows a similar lane presentation where you hit the notes, and you also like swap lanes and stuff, but Frequency is actually it's really crazy looking. It almost looks like a Ouendan visual or something. You want to talk crustiness, right? Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, like absolutely has that kind of aesthetic going on, which, again, was very much of its time. They really captured the essence.
Ye old era of the early 2000s.
Oh, ancient history. Oh,
yeah.
My.
Yeah, right? But the really cool part about this game, which I didn't know till writing up the show notes, was this actually supported online play. Like, it actually had, like, it let you connect to people online. I think very few PlayStation 2 games let you do that. Like, most people probably think of, like, Phantasy Star Universe or, like, Final Fantasy 11, but apparently this game actually supported it. I had no idea, which is like kind of nuts, right? I mean, did you know about this, or like?
No, like, honestly, sometimes I forget that the PS2 did have some kind of online connections, even if it was just for a few games. But yeah, knowing that this was one of them, I had no idea.
Yeah, and this is well before like the current era of like sharing scores. Like now, if you play on DDR, like you have your little like card or whatever doodad, and you can like save your scores and like compete against other people. But like this is like practically like more than a decade before that, right? So I mean, it's actually kind of nuts to think about.
Oh yeah, but it's really cool to see how things have developed from then. I mean, we've seen Harmonix go on to do some great things. We've seen other games, maybe we'll mention a few, we'll see, that take from this sort of initial starting point. But yeah, I feel like it's an important part we gotta bring up at some point here.
Oh yeah, it's an important thing to bring up because we're gonna be taking a break. I'm gonna be doing some deep dives and some really crazy shenanigans. So we'll need that cornerstone. We'll need that Ampy stability before I start like making the show implode or whatever, right? So we're gonna take a break. We'll see you after the break. Don't go anywhere.
We'll be right back.
We're back, everybody. We got the power of the cheerleading squads to amp us up for the rest of the pod. There might not actually be Ouendan squads behind us right now, but we can imagine that to be the case. And so we're gonna go ahead and dive into some other oddities. I came up with a handful, and this one might be kind of weird to refer to as an oddity given its history, but I wanted to kickstart things with PaRappa the Rapper. And the reason why I sort of want to bring it up is that not only was it one of the very first like rhythm games, but like just on a sheer presentation level, this game is like crazy, right? It's like the characters are flat polygons, and they have very comic expressions, and they kind of like move in funky ways. And this game is just super, super funky. You're basically doing Simon Says as like whatever character raps a verse. You press buttons to sort of follow what they're doing. And the really big thing about PaRappa is just how catchy these songs are, right? There's really crazy situations. People really remember the first stage. Master Onion is basically teaching a martial arts class to like the beat, right? Kick, punch, it's all in the mind. It's like legendary. Well, is it legendary to us or is it legendary in general?
That's pretty legendary. Everyone remembers that old starting stage. Like even folks who didn't really play the game, come on, they've heard of that.
Okay, good. Okay, I wasn't sure if I was totally crazy, but but yeah, this game is really, really crazy. It's only 6 stages, so it's relatively short, but it was a PlayStation, like an original PlayStation game, so you can't really fault it for too much. But yeah, what kind of sticks out about PaRappa to you?
Well, just visually, it makes a huge impression. Like you said, the whole like sort of flat, colorful characters, and they've got like entire stories for each of these stages. Like, sure, there's only a few of them, but you've got sometimes a couple minutes intro setting up. Oh, what's PaRappa doing today? What kind of adventures are happening here? What's the whole premise for why we're doing this song? And just all the style for that. Not just the visuals, but again, like you said, the songs. Just some of these are just some real earworms, and it just was really a great way to kickstart rhythm games as in general.
Yeah, it's sort of a really poignant hallmark of like the mid to late 90s too, just given how like over the top and cartoony it is. Really, the whole premise is that PaRappa is doing all these thingamabobas to try to like impress his sweetheart, right? And so he's doing all these crazy shenanigans. He's doing these martial arts classes. He's doing all these different errands. But what was my favorite stage, which I sometimes crack jokes about, even to this day, is stage 5, which is PaRappa needing to go to the bathroom. Except there's like a long line of his previous opponents in front of him. So like he has to basically keep rapping or else sort of disastrous results happen, right? But yeah, like I think there's a verse that says in the rain or in the snow, I got the funky flow, but now I really I really gotta go.
Yep, yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah, it was super funny, and I'm sure like something else kind of sticks out to you too.
Oh yeah, like one of I didn't do too much of it, but what I do remember was stage. I think this is the 4th one. That was the cooking one where PaRappa has to go and make a cake for his girlfriend.
Yeah,
so, and all the stuff like gotta crack that egg into the bowl, and MIX the flour into the bowl.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
and then like the chicken bakers there like gets all up in your face if you start messing up, like coming out of the TV screen to yell at you and stuff.
I think they're also like steaming red too, if I'm not totally mistaken. I think.
Yeah, the chicken is miffed, and then the cake goes a very interesting direction at the end, but just seems like the perfect hallmark of all that's wild about these games and such.
Oh my god! Yeah, what a '90s game! Oh my god! Oh golly!
Yeah.
And really, ultimately, it kickstarted this whole like legacy of really over the top like narrative based rhythm games, right? And that's again going back to why we're sort of drawn to this genre. It's just a very sort of, at least of these over the top things, right? And I got something that's super over the top for you.
Oh yeah, let's hear it.
Are you ready?
I'm ready. What do we got?
As a bit of a forewarning, I'm probably going to have to rein in my fanboyism a little bit, but I'm going to give Ampy the permission to proverbially smack me upside the head if I like rant on for too long. But I wanted to mention Hatsune Miku Project Diva and its various sequels. Not that I'm going to list off literally everything, but really ultimately this is an oddity because it's the ultimate synthesis of dance routines and razzle dazzle, and not all of it necessarily makes sense. It's got a little bit of crazy over the top anime over here. It's got a little bit of sort of methodical button pressing over there, and fundamentally it's pretty similar to other rhythm games in that you press buttons at the right time, right? So like the target zones, unlike previous games, aren't always on like on a linear track. They sort of circle around the screen, right? So you'll see like these target zones circle around as Miku and her friends are dancing in the middle, and you press the button when like the target cue overlaps the zone, right? So fundamentally, it follows its predecessors while doing things pretty differently, presentation-wise, right? And I didn't get into the series from the very beginning. It started off as a PlayStation Portable series, which kind of is a timestamp in itself. And I wasn't really into Hatsune Miku. I wasn't really part of this Vocaloid thing. But I played one of the Japanese-only PSP games in 2013, and then I guess I kind of opened the floodgates, right? And then the ultimate localization miracle happened afterwards that summer when we got Project Diva F on PS3 that summer, right? So and then I dove super into that. I got really engrossed in that presentation. But I think these games might as well be from Mars to like most people. Like, I think your first exposure to Vocaloid was probably when I did a cosplay at Anime Expo 2014.
Yeah, like I heard of Miku. I knew Miku was a thing that existed, but I didn't know all this other story that existed with the other Vocaloids. So really, that was kind of my introduction to all of this.
This is the part where I say I'm sorry, not sorry.
Hey, no need to apologize. It was cool seeing that because, I don't know, you get to see something a little bit different outside the norm. And frankly, there's been a lot of really cool stuff in that area. I haven't really played much of the games myself, but it's still been cool to see all the presentation behind this. Like, they really go all out, just like you've been saying.
They go super all out, and really Vocaloid is, it's sort of like a ground for expressing oneself. Miku and her Vocaloid friends are sort of like a ground for music producers to create their own songs while like programming vocals. and having artists like collaborate. And there's a lot of collaboration that happens in these games. There's a lot of different art, and that actually like ended up in a bunch of figures, right, which are made to this day. I might have gone on like a bit of a goose chase to find some Kagemine Rin and Hatsune Miku figures during Fanmade 2016. Which I think you probably remember some of that chase happening that year.
Oh yeah, a little bit of it there, but it's great. They really just do some amazing figures for that. I've seen all
they really do.
The various outfits Miku's had, all the different seasonal ones or special events. Like, it's really amazing to see all the variety you get there.
Yeah, I was collecting Snow Miku figures for 5 years straight. Wait, I gotta cut it. I can't talk about that too much. It's a video game pod. But the rest of the Fine Time crew is gonna punch me in the face if I talk about anime figures too much. Actually, no, they won't. I won't let them punch me in the face. But even in 2022, you're still gonna have a really fun time explaining who Hatsune Miku is. She kind of defies like sort of the norm in some ways, right? She exists as like a character, albeit one who does not actually like exist in real space. So like, even though there's like real concerts for Miku and her friends, like the concerts take place via like a hologram accompanied by other live performers. So it's kind of a very interesting experimental like space, right? As for the games themselves, they can be kind of strangely nitpicky. The timing text is kind of odd. They say like they'll use words like safe even when that means you actually missed. So it's like kind of weird. And the timing is kind of specific, right? So some rhythm games like DDR are notorious for being a little nitpicky in terms of like the window in which you have to hit something correctly. This is kind of specific. And like, if you're just starting out, sometimes the thresholds for actually clearing stuff are kind of high, right? So that's like some of the weirdness of these games, right? So if you're just like starting out, there's a wide range of difficulty levels. So like, definitely you have to like kind of start out a little like easier, right? At first anyway. But really ultimately, to me, these games are some of the best values in rhythm gaming, probably close to like Curtain Call, right? Which we like really love. But Hatsune Miku Project Diva Future Tone on PS4 had like over 200 songs. And then the recent stealth dropped Steam version, which is called Mega Mix Plus, like that even has like most of that content. And it's one of the best values you can get in the genre, provided you want to play on Steam in that particular case. But regardless of platform, these games are like super, super solid. If you feel crazy enough, you could try Mirai DX on 3DS before the Nintendo eShop implodes.
Get in while you can.
Yeah. In general speaking, Mega Mix Plus will cover most of the bases, really honestly. And another weird thing is just the button presses don't actually correspond to instruments, right? So like in Rock Band and like Guitar Hero, like when you press something, it actually like plays an instrument, but like the button presses sort of correspond to vocals in this game. So that's like kind of interesting conceptually, right? So again, it's like just different. That's why we consider it pretty odd, but you know, it's fun.
Yeah, like in my limited experience, it's amazing what they do, not just as far as the visual productions, but how you've actually got the props on screen. You've got them sort of flowing in from all sorts of directions. It's not just like one straight lane like you'll get for something like, well, Frequency, but things will come in from all sorts of parts of the screen. You'll actually follow it kind of across the screen. It'll be carving its own interesting path.
Yeah, there's an interesting pattern.
Yeah, so that's one way it really stood out to me.
I like how hypnotic it is, but again, like, some people might be sort of confused by what's happening, but again, it's sort of like pseudo deconstructionist, right, in some ways. So I thought that was like really cool. But we gotta tear ourselves away from the Vocaloid sphere before we get sucked in. We're gonna get sucked into another rabbit hole. We gotta reach out to some stuff. We're going to be reaching out to the 3 Persona dancing games. Persona 3 Dancing in Moonlight, Persona 4 Dancing All Night, and Persona 5 Dancing in Starlight. I'm pretty sure I got those right. But these games have a bit of an interesting history. Persona 4 Dancing All Night was announced November 2013, alongside Persona Q, the dungeon crawler, and Persona 5. And I remember this because I was hanging out at someone's house during Thanksgiving, and I like read this off, and like my friend just blew it off. He's like, "Oh, I only care about Persona 5." And it's like, I don't care about these other games. Not in that voice. Or was it in that voice? I don't really know. But we were all like confused by the sheer number of titles that were being dropped. Because like, if someone tells you about these, you're like, what the heck is going on?
Yeah, like, it's like, okay, well, I've heard of Persona, and now suddenly we're getting flooded with all of these at once. It's like, whoa, hold on here.
Yeah, it's really funny. Yeah. And this game is weird to talk about because I think it's one of the most shoehorned genres into like a spin-off project. The premise is really funny. You're basically using the power of dance to take out monsters, because otherwise, if you just use RPG weapons against these monsters, they're like immune to them. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but it was really, really funny. But fundamentally, it's not too dissimilar from like other rhythm games in that like you have a target zone, which is this giant circle around like the character that you're dancing with, and then sort of the target cues like go to the edges of that circle, right? So like it really made use of that Vita screen when it was originally released on the Vita, and then later released on PS4 and stuff like that. But it looked really vibrant, and like the characters actually had some pretty sick moves. You got to see like the Persona 4 protagonist like do some sick spins and stuff like that. I'm like, well, I wouldn't normally see that in the games themselves, but it was pretty interesting. They really had some stylized visuals and like audio pizzazz, and they really play off the game's respective motifs. There's a lot of over the top like warm hues in like Persona 4, and like this sort of reflects all of that. And then like Persona 3 and 5 also take after like the respective like themes of their games. So like Persona 5's really got that sort of what do you want to call like the diagonal ransom sort of crazy motif? I don't know what you want to call that, but
oh yeah, like the whole ransom letters, the whole black and red and such. Like,
yeah,
really striking.
Yeah, it's super striking. Thank you. Yeah, and it's just to be entirely honest, our Shin Megami Tensei / Persona history is not like we haven't played like all these games, but like we've heard these songs. They're super ubiquitous. We know a bunch of people that are into these games. So like it doesn't take like a devout fan to know that, like this audio direction is just like legendary, right? And yeah, I mean like it just is really cool to see in motion.
Oh, totally. Like the great thing about it is, yeah, like I haven't really played much in the way of Persona, but they go so hard on the soundtracks in each of them. Like I mean, and they take that sort of over the top, spirit in the games, and they work it into these sick dance routines. And like, I haven't even done a whole lot, but I've heard in different spaces plenty of like Specialist or, of course, Last Surprise, just by proximity. And it's really, really hard not to groove to either of those. And plenty others besides.
Is it passive if I crack a "you'll never see it coming" joke? Yeah, but yeah, like the battle songs are like super memorable. And there's a lot of remixes in this game. So like the last boss song from like Persona 3 has like this really funky remix that I thought was like really memorable. And Last Surprise, like the battle song for Persona 5, that also has like some pretty groovin' mixes. And yeah, man, it's just a very, very interesting take on like a role-playing series, right? And I think it just diverges from perhaps like Theatrhythm Final Fantasy in the sense like it's got like full like 3D models, and like it really leans in super hard on like the presentation, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's what's really neat about it too. They take all of what we already made things interesting visually in the Persona games, and they transplanted that and spiced it up in some really cool ways.
Absolutely. I got a Nintendo thing of my own, not to get too... I don't want to get too off the beaten path here, but, well, maybe it is kind of off the beaten path, because it's kind of jungly, but I wanted to talk about Donkey Konga, which was back on the Nintendo GameCube about 20 years ago. Oh god, it's falling into like the old school territory. Oh shit.
There's no escape.
Actually, I remember I was at your friend's apartment, and I think your friend had like a pair of bongos just like chilling there.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, but yeah, it was probably set up like that. But
yeah, because we were playing Smash Brawl like opening night at your friend's place, and there were like two bongos like just chilling there.
Oh yeah, okay, I remember now. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I never mentioned it until now. I saved it up for the pod.
I didn't see that one coming.
Yeah, you never saw it man. Oh wait, what? But yeah, these games are interesting that they basically appropriated the Taiko no Tatsujin engine. So like it's pretty basic compared to the games we just talked about, but there's a linear track. Oh my god, it's just a line, and the target cues coming from the right, and they scroll left, and then you either hit left, you either hit right, or you hit both at the same time, or you clap, and that's how you like do inputs. And the clapping was super weird because like I guess there's like probably like a microphone on the bongos maybe, but the clapping was an interesting touch because I remember the first time I played this game, like my wrists were kind of feeling a little sore. I don't know about you, but like just like trying to clap, like I think I was clapping too hard or something.
Oh yeah, it wears you out over time. And yeah, I don't know if they have like some kind of audio receiver or what exactly, but yeah, you clap a whole bunch, and you know what? It adds up over time.
Yeah, it's like my wrists are not as built as DK's, man. But eventually, I kind of like figure out how to like not clap as hard. Eventually, but the North American versions were pretty funky because they were the ultimate melting pot of random mainstream songs. I don't even know how to quantify this, but they had like "We Will Rock You" and like "Rock Lobster" of all things. I'm like, oh. It's like maybe it was just like Namco thought was popular over here. I really don't know what happened, but
I guess they just kind of wanted to reach back and just like, okay, let's just cherry pick a few things from here. We'll make this work. People still like this, right?
Yeah. We like "We Will Rock You." Sure. Yeah, I love to hit bongos to that song. Yeah. ... And something that I'm going to confess on the pod that I don't typically say is that I sort of infamously imported Donkey Konga 3 in college because the Japanese versions have like their own sort of song list, like popular songs over there, and then songs that wouldn't be in ours. So like there wasn't a North American version of Donkey Konga 3. So this had like its own sort of like visual presentation that we didn't see over here. But the reason why I imported it was that for some reason I was addicted to like Asian Kung Fu Generations Rewrite, which is like it's a Full Metal Alchemist opening. But of course this is a cover of that song, and for some reason like I was really sucked into this song and I wanted to play it in bongo form for some reason. And there's some other tracks too. There's some really interesting Nintendo medleys as well. But like, that was a thing I did for some reason. I wanted to maximize my bongos or something like that. And the bongos in general felt kind of underutilized. I think it was literally just Donkey Konga and like Jungle Beat, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, although it was cool that we did get those showing up in Jungle Beat. They actually made a whole separate thing, like separate from music with that too.
Oh yeah, it was a super solid game. Doesn't get enough respect. And yeah, like I guess the big question to me though is like, would Nintendo actually ever do something like this again? Would they ever release a dedicated peripheral for music? It's like kind of hard to imagine nowadays, right? Because like the Switch is so like scaled back. Like so far as peripherals go, there's like Ring Fit, but like outside of that, it's like I don't know.
I mean, even Ring Fit happening feels like it was sort of a small miracle. Like, it feels like we are beyond the age of peripherals. Like, that was really intense. Like, I think it hit its peak around, a decade ago. Again. But yeah. You had all the plastic guitars and drum sets, and then they all just kind of stopped making names for them and stopped making the peripherals. So,
do you remember when they tried to reboot it, though? Like, they tried to do, like, Rock Band 4. I think, like... I don't remember who was manufacturing the controllers, but they like tried to reboot it last generation. I was like, it didn't really take off.
Yeah, it feels like the time had passed, and I don't know if we're going to see that time in the future.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't fit that stuff in my apartment. I live in a dinky little apartment, so I can't really do that. But it takes me back to like the Wii plastic, like the Wii Zapper, the Wii Wheel.
Yeah, like they've had a history of those, absolutely.
Yeah, but I think the Switch is more streamlined. So I don't think they'd really do that nowadays. I guess the plastic are just the amiibos that we buy like suckers, right? Hey, I'm the one that buys the amiibos like a sucker. I shouldn't rope you into this, but
Oh, hey, look, you want to talk peripherals? I got the mouse back from Mario Paint back in the day.
Oh,
Like,
holy shit, I had that
there.
too. Oh my god, that was good. Yeah. Mario Paint was fun. I don't know if we'll see it again, but some of those assets are in Mario Maker too.
Yeah, and hey, we have music back in that too. That was kind of what got me doing some early stuff.
Oh yeah, that was fun. I do remember some of the Mario Paint songs and like the wacky instruments, those wacky early 90s Super Nintendo instruments. That's right. Yes. Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
It is. I thought that was something I haven't thought about in like a few decades.
Oh god, we're going back even more than 2 decades now.
Yeah. Mario Paint is probably what, 30 years old now? Oh shit. Why did I say that?
Oh, I'm turning into dust.
Damn it. Yeah, according to like all the people on the internet nowadays, we're just gonna crumble and fade away into dust. That's exactly what's gonna happen, right?
We're ancient now.
Yeah. Oh god. I had one more game that I wanted to mention really quick. It was actually a series, really. This is a Poppin' Music. This is sort of one of Konami's arcade rhythm gaming franchises. It's a pretty interesting game. It's basically 9 giant buttons, the video game, right? Which is like really strange conceptually. Like you're still pressing buttons according to like when the cues hit the target line, but it's like figuring out how to hit like these differently colored buttons is sort of a mental exercise, right? Word on the street is that earlier versions were meant to attract couples. So like I guess like they'd take like each side of the cabinet. So like maybe like one person gets 3 buttons and maybe someone else gets other buttons. But over time it became a thing where like one person would hit all 9. So it's like DDR's got 4 arrows, but it's like just imagine that expanding, right? Just doubling. It's like, oh, can you like, you gotta bend your brain to hit it, right? And by today's standards, this game actually isn't like the most crazy, but I still wanted to mention it as an oddity, just because they're not actually analogous to a real instrument. Like the sounds that play depend on what song you're playing. So sometimes it's vocals, sometimes it's percussion, sometimes it's like a guitar stuff. It's like really, really weird. But really, ultimately, the big thing about Poppin' is just how colorful it is. There's some really vibrant characters. Actually, kind of in a manner of speaking, not too dissimilar from like Rhythm Heaven, if you think about it. Even though this predated that, but yeah, like the main characters are like maybe the rabbit and Nyami the cat, and they're in every single game, and they have different outfits, and each game has like a different theme. Sometimes you're in the jungle, sometimes you're on like a movie set, sometimes you are in the park, and then like later games, get really, really wacky with the titles. I don't know if I can properly encapsulate them in this podcast, but yeah, like I remember you like really enjoyed the visual design as well.
Oh yeah, like the way it works is you choose your little character that's representing you just in the corner and doing a little like, yeah, I'm doing well, or oh no, I'm doing terrible animations.
Literally, oh no, yeah.
But yeah, like you've got Mimi and Yami, but a lot of times there'd be these characters that I swear were like in maybe 1 or 2 versions and they were just gone forever, which was annoying because it's like, these are all cute characters. I want to see them come back. But if you're not like one of the more popular ones, you might be out of luck on that front.
Yeah.
But it was really cute animations and just fun stuff. And I never really got the handle of doing all 9 of those buttons at once. But one of my favorite things was they had this sort of multiplayer mode where one person on each side just had 3 buttons. But then you'd be tapping along, and then if you got a bunch of the hits right, then suddenly your opponent gets all messed up in their visuals. Like it'll be giant size, or it'll be like super squiggly or wavy. And
yeah, the wavy movement, that's right.
Yeah, or it would just flip up and go from, bottom to top instead of top to bottom. So you've got all kinds of wacky stuff. And that was fun because it's like, okay, I can handle 3 buttons for now at least.
Yeah.
So some of the other stuff, like I just got blown up horribly trying to do.
Yeah, dude, battle mode's a fun time, but it's good to just have fun with your buddy or whatever, right? But like actually like learning like the 9 button mode, it's like, oh, it's an adventure just like figuring out how to like even like how to like rewire your brain to like hit some of these things, because sometimes you have to like use your fingers to hit the top 2 on the right while you hit some other stuff on the bottom, and it's like by the time you try to like think about how to do it, it's already too late. So you have to like rewire muscle memory. It's like it's an interesting exercise, and like there's a high skill ceiling, but like honestly, like there's a wide range of difficulties too. So it's not like strictly only for expert players, right? You have to practice the game a lot. But yeah, the characters are super cute. When you're doing really well, when you have a big combo, you'll do like fever animations, and you'll like do like pretty sparkles, and like do these crazy routines and stuff like that. So like it really has a lot of like vibrancy, and it's fun to watch. But to be entirely honest, I think the locations in which you can actually play this are kind of like shrinking a bit. I can't even really name like a location near me that has it out anymore. I used to practice on some cabinets back in the day. I think there's like an online client technically, but it's like a subscription model, but it's only in Japan, and that's pretty odd, right? It's an oddity.
It is.
I just slip in that word everywhere.
It's almost as ubiquitous as Benjamin at this point.
I think it's time to take a break. I'm going to be popping off during this break. Ampy is going to be amping it up. We're going to be coming back with some amp it up. We're going to come back with some obscurities. We'll see you after the break.
All right. See you soon.
We're back from the obscure world of Benjamin, everybody! Benjamin and his crazy rhythm gaming world. Wait, what? That's not what this is about. We're diving into some obscurities, the second half of the title. But unlike the previous Oddities, these are not necessarily games we recommend unless you really want to go out of your way to play them. Some of them are good, other ones are just okay, but we felt they were interesting to talk about, particularly just because they're just plain weird. But some of the cases, they're dependent on having like older hardware that's like kind of a pain in the ass to get nowadays. Moving right along, speaking of limited stuff, we might as well get right into it with DG Max Technika, which is a really solid game. We both have a pretty extensive history with it, but it was an arcade game that was predominantly present from 2009 to about 2012. And I think the online servers kind of went under a few years after that. But it's a touchscreen based game. This game is really notable because it predated a lot of touchscreens. You're literally tapping the circles as like the target line is scrolling. So that was like super, super unique in 2009. Like now everyone has like an iPhone. Everyone's got like a freaking tablet. So like you can touch all the things that you want. But at the time though, this just wasn't like a common thing, right?
Yeah, it's kind of one of the earliest examples of that. And there's a whole lot of games that built off of the whole touchscreen model. So I feel like a lot of them owe it to this.
Absolutely.
And I was really excited. I was lucky enough to get in fairly early on with the original release, and there were 3 versions of this that came out, and they just kept building on it. Had a lot of different interesting mechanics for the taps, too. It'll be like tapping the same button a bunch of times, or holding, dragging a certain way. Like they went into a lot of different kinds of things.
Yeah, it was there were some whole notes. Those were like blues. You hold your finger in place. The thing that bamboozled like literally everyone to start with was like these purple ones, right? So like the purple ones, you have to touch the same area over and over and over again. But like it looked like you had to touch other parts of the screen, but so you had to do like mental gymnastics. You're looking at one spot while you're tapping other stuff. So like that's more advanced, but like fundamentally the game is just about touching circles at the right time, right? And like this game has a really, really fascinating history. DJ Max had existed prior to this as sort of like a Beatmania sort of inspired game, but this is like a whole thing unto itself. And there's some odd stuff about this game. I know you like some of the scoring mechanics.
Oh God, it was so cruel on the first game. It's like, okay, well you got 90% perfects, but you dropped the combo a few places, so you get a C.
It's like I don't think that's how grading works. But then the opposite, so the original game was like that, but then Technika 2 overcompensated, so everything got A's.
Yeah, they just couldn't get that balance right. It was just back and forth.
Yeah. So like 3 was the game I didn't really play too much. So maybe they got it right a little more, but like, yeah, it was very sort of back and forth. It was so weird. And in the US, you pretty much had to live near a coast or like in certain areas of the country, like Texas, to play this game. So like if you weren't in those areas, you're a host, right? So like in Korea, this was pretty ubiquitous, but like if you weren't in those very, very specific spots of Northern California or Southern California or like New York, you're finished. You were like, you couldn't do anything, right? But yeah, as the great granddaddy of touchscreen based rhythm games, it's super cool. And like, it's a very stylish cabinet. Spectators can look at the top screen and you're tapping like this slanted bottom screen. And it's like super cool. It's like just on a pure physical and in-game presentation level. It's really neat. And yeah, man, it had a lot of different genres of music. There was a lot of hip-hop, some rock here and there, some like K-pop. So it was neat, man. It was super cool.
Yeah, they really just spanned a whole lot of things. Had a bunch of fun visuals going on for that too. Little storylines for some of the different songs going on, and
that's right.
Different little good details like that. And like But yeah, it was one of those early touchscreen things. And Technika walked, so a lot of these later games could run, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We'll be getting some running. One game that you could potentially run with, but would be a bad idea, is actually the spin-off DJ Max Technika Tune on the Vita. So this game kind of sort of was after Technika 3, so it drew a lot of inspiration from like some of the other games, right? But this is actually a super baller version of the game. It was a portable version. The Vita having a pretty big touchscreen at the time anyway. It was a pretty sizable touchscreen. The weird gimmick about it is that you're able to enable like a mode where you have to touch the front and the back potentially, because the Vita had a rear touch panel that was really only used for very few games. But if you try to imagine holding like a handheld and touching the screen with your thumbs while tapping the back with your middle finger, maybe so you basically have to turn to a spider to play that mode. And like, so I was trying to remember if I just had weird memories of this, but I actually tried it in preparation for this pod, and like, yeah, it was very much as convoluted as I remember it. I was trying to describe it to Ampy. It was all like, it was weird. It was weird. I was doing mental gymnastics just to explain it. And my biggest memory of this game is that Dre and I both picked this up, and we laughed at a particular song. This song is named In the T-Dot, but we joked that basically the guy that was rapping was like this wannabe rapper who has such cool lines as in the T-Dot, oh! And like, you press the screen as he says oh, and we laughed our asses off.
You showed me the video for this, and oh my god, it really is something. I'll say that.
T-Dot, oh! And the very end of the song says, I love this city, man. I'm just like, thanks, Technika Tune. One of my biggest Vita memories is a freaking crazy set of lyrics. Oh my god. Okay. Oh. All right, let's get crazy. Let's get crazy and obscure. I think you have something that is crazy and obscure. Take the toys away from me so I don't get too crazy with them.
I'm taking them. You will not get them back. Okay, so one thing I want to bring up is I've already mentioned DDR. What if we shift into 5 panels for a change? So we've got Pump It Up Pro. Now, Pump It Up's been around for a while, like just about as long as DDR, but Pump It Up Pro was a little bit different.
Yeah, so Pump It Up is a long-running Korean arcade dance franchise, right? So, like, again, like, as you say, pretty much since DDR, like, around the same, contemporary with DDR, right? But Pro is, like, a really weird Frankenstein in some ways, because it was meant to cater to Western audiences. So, to dive into the rabbit hole further, there was a sort of westernized DDR named In the Groove that like hardcore dance gaming players like spammed back in the day, especially the late 2000s, ye old ancient era of the late 2000s. Actually mid late 2000s, sorry, my bad.
Oh yeah.
And then so yeah, like so this is basically by the same developers as that. And so this is like a Western pump it up, right? So it actually had some songs from In the Groove. I think like Energizer.
Yes, yes, it had that. We all know your history with Energizer.
Do I want to try to hum the song on a pod? I might embarrass myself, but I'll try. Let's see here. I think it goes a little something like
Yes, yep, that's it.
yeah. And you try to like dance to that. Oh my god, it's the In the Groove chart is such a pain in the ass to do.
Oh, it is brutal. It's like one of the nasty ones.
Yeah, it's too much. It's too much. But yeah, like I actually do play Pump It Up even now. I again like in the Rona era, not quite as much, but yeah, we've done some 5-arrow stops. We've done 5 arrows. We like to stomp on the diagonals. We like to stomp on the center. So this is pretty interesting.
Yeah, that's kind of the neat thing about it. DDR is just 4 arrows, up, down, left, right. But yeah, we've got diagonals for this. So we got up, left, up, right, bottom left, bottom right, and you got a center panel. So you actually, a lot of people have said, and I kind of agree, that it feels a little more natural stepping like that compared to DDR's little 4-arrow system. And you can get some pretty funky, like 3-pad things where you're on the top left, top right, and the center, or you're doing all kinds of other funky stuff.
Yeah, and that formation is sort of intended, for my understanding, to sort of simulate some dance routines. So like sometimes you actually be like spinning around and stuff. There are times when like the game is intending for you to use like your hands to hit the center at specific points. Though like nowadays people will try to cheese it just by like trying to step on 2 things at the same time. But like yeah, that was like, it's kind of interesting. I know this sounds kind of weird and like intimidating, but like yeah, it's just like the diagonals in general are just very organic, right? So that's like the coolest part about it. Like it really makes you feel like you're spinning sometimes, and like whereas like DDR sometimes like nowadays people just sort of like try to encompass all 4 like arrows with like their feet or like whatever. So you're not really dancing as
that's bracket life, baby.
Yeah, you just like spam the sides of the arrows, right? Yeah, it's pretty. Yeah. But Pump It Up Pro was interesting, and it was kind of a unique sort of like experiment. I'm gonna take the keys back, the obscure keys, into the world of obscurity, with one of the 2015 Vita rhythm games. This year had a whole glut of them. There was a Taiko no Tatsujin, there was Persona 4 Dancing, and there was even also like a Idolmaster Taiko game, like a pair of them. It was like really, really weird. But one of the weirdest games that actually came out was this game, IA/VT Colorful. The VT stands for Visual Tunes, from my understanding. And again, being a Vita game, it is destined for infinite obscurity. But from the title alone, you can tell this game is a super obscure oddball. Again, like IA/VT, it's just weird to see, right? Ia is a Vocaloid not too dissimilar from Miku and her friends, but by a different company. It's sort of parallel to Project Diva in a way, but the presentation of like the way the notes flow is like different, right? The track, it'll actually like diverge and split off, and so it's not always like the same sort of like linear track, but it's always on a track of some sort. Sometimes it splits though, sometimes it like becomes a circle, sometimes the notes will like spin around, right? And the presentation is super sleek. In a manner of speaking, it's sort of like a lower budget like Project Diva in some ways, but the soundtrack is actually full of bangers. I listened to it the other day just to remind myself. Ia's vocals in some of these songs are really, really catchy, like in things like Cloud Rider, Revenger Syndrome. Those are very, very catchy songs. Ampy loves Vocaloids. Wait a second. I think I got that wrong.
Well, I mean, I do enjoy what I've seen, but I don't think I can compare to the depths of your passion.
I'm going to send a Vita for Christmas in the year 2022. Wait, no, I'm not. That's a bad idea.
I'm missing out on critical experiences here.
Yeah. I don't know if this game is ever coming back. It would be cool if it did, but like I think it's kind of a one-off experiment. It was a really interesting part of the Vita. I think it's cool. Well, something a lot less weird is something that I'm going to let you take away. I'm going to give the keys back to you.
We're going to a game here for maniacs. StepManiaX. Or StepManiaX, whatever you want to call it.
I like StepManiaX.
Yeah, I don't even know, because I've never heard it pronounced in the wild or in any other environment, but yeah. So this is kind of a different take on 5-arrow stepping. You've got the same 4 DDR panels, but you've got a center one now. So that's a little bit different. It's not quite the same as Pump It Up, where it's a bit easier to hit all 3, but here you can do a couple little 3-panel maneuvers, and it's a little getting used to. It's not quite the same, again, 5-arrow experience. But a lot of the lower-level charts don't even bother with the middle, so if you're more familiar with DDR, this is going to be pretty similar. You could probably get into this pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. Of course, that assumes you can even find one, because they're not easy to find. We'll put it that way.
Yeah, you want to talk obscurities. Even though it's a modern game, it's like kind of hard to find in the wild. Actually, we got to play one way up north in a bowling alley, but now they got rid of all their arcade games, so I don't even know of a spot anymore. There might be one in like Fisherman's Wharf in San Francisco, maybe, but like I don't really feel like going out there to play StepManiaX.
Yeah, I got to play once at MagFest one time. They had
it was at MagFest. Okay, interesting. Yeah,
but other than that, I've had almost no chance to even really give it a try. It's neat, but yeah, it's pretty hard to come by.
Yeah,
For what I understand, they also do like really high quality, just metal pads. Like, first of all,
that's right. Yeah.
Good luck, affording them. They're not cheap. Good luck even getting an order in, because they rarely come in stock. And you've got like a couple hundred pads of something getting shipped around. Like, good luck having a place to put it too. It's rad, but you got to be seriously dedicated to get one of those.
Yeah, if I played it here, I think I'd just piss off my neighbors downstairs. I would be evicted, but at least I have a sick metal pad, right? It doesn't care, like, I got kicked out of my apartment, but at least I got metal. I got chrome in my hands. It's dedication. Cool, though. It is, it's a dedication to what end, right? But the cabinet did look pretty lit up from my recollection. Like, lots of lights everywhere. I think it has kind of neon-ish. Do you remember this stuff, or am I making stuff up? I don't remember, but
it's pretty flashy and everything with all the like light displays it has going on there. So it definitely delivers on that front too.
Oh yeah. I got something flashy. It kind of looks Flash animation-y. Maybe it's a little disparaging, but I wanted to bring up this game, Beat Deadspike-san. The name is really weird, but this is actually based off of the BlazBlue fighting game franchise. It's named as such because Dead Spike is like Ragna the Blood Edge, the main character's like special move. He does a little uppercut looking thing, and this giant like sort of beast thing comes out. In this game, like the mini black beast, I didn't make up that term. That's a game term that is actually pulling Ragna around, and then the beast like opens their mouth to like devour the notes. What am I saying? This is like the weirdest shit. And as if that's not enough, like you can also switch out the black beast. So for Carl Clover and Hazama's avatars can also like pull them around and eat notes. And this game's like really, really weird. But it's on 3DS. It's really only for hardcore fans, but like BlazBlue does some pretty big in songs, right?
Oh yeah, like there's a lot of really rad songs from that. And also, just if we're talking weird premises for a game, this is possibly the most out there even of all of them. And that's saying something, given we've talked about like 2 separate instances of bathroom-related incidents and all kinds of other things under the sun.
It's an obscurity, but it is worth picking up before the eShop implodes. We aren't necessarily going to begrudge you too much if you don't bend over backwards for Beat Deadspike-san. I'm going to throw it back in your court. I'm going to throw the circles, the spheres back in your court.
Yes, spheres. Let's talk about spheres. Let's talk about Tone Sphere. So this was a mobile title that I kind of randomly stumbled across. I'm trying to remember where I first heard about it. But this is pretty interesting. I ended up actually playing it a lot on flights, back when airplanes were still like a regular thing and not what they are right now. But it's interesting. It's got this really kind of abstract minimalist sort of thing going on. You've got a couple of familiar, tapping the circles, dragging across like different patterns, or doing multiple taps. It gets kind of out there. It's got its own kind of little storyline too. I don't remember too much about it, but it's just really it's got it's very kind of out there as far as the music and visuals go. It just was kind of one of an interesting mix of different ones I've seen on mobile and so forth.
I think it was one of the earliest mobile music games, right? Like it was a little, like maybe like a little after Technika, so like maybe early 2010s question mark. So that sounds like the iPhone era, right? Yeah. It was cool. I didn't do too much of it myself, but I remember like it was really elegantly presented, right? And again, leading into the whole like circular motif, it was really clear on a UI level. I remember that. I think the songs were like kind of like wide ranging. There was a gamut of sort of techno-y things. It's kind of been a hot minute though.
Yeah, it's got this real ethereal kind of vibe to it. Like
that's right.
Like mechanical yet ethereal. It's very distinct, which is kind of what I wanted to bring up among if we're talking obscurities, I mean, you feel this falls into that category too.
I think so too, yeah. And I think there might be another Tone Sphere that might be more recent. I don't quite remember, but like I remember like, yeah, in general speaking, Tone Sphere has a pretty elegant presentation for sure. We're going to pull ourselves out of the obscurity zone. There's plenty more that we could talk about, but we got to draw the line somewhere or else it'll be just obscurity time more than fine time. So we have some closing remarks, some big questions, and we're going to run through them really, really quick here. We're in a pretty weird era of rhythm games in general. When I was hanging out round one earlier this year, I kind of felt like a fish out of water. I barely know how to pronounce some of the game names. And really, they kind of lean into this current trend of like anime characters coming alive, so to speak. We see that a lot on stream. And so like pop culture is kind of reflecting this as well. So that was really interesting for me to see. So the question is, where do you see the genre going from here on out?
Well, for a while, I honestly was worried that rhythm games were going to sort of die off. I mean, there was this period in the world of DDR where we just got nothing for several years. It was implied Extreme really was going to be the last one. And then In the Groove happened, and then, well, after that, DDR Supernova happened. But, I mean, there were always releases going on in some other Bimani games. So they never totally, like, disappeared. But it feels like they've just continued to explode over the past decade or so. You get a lot of the touchscreen games, and we've already covered a handful of those. But there's also new ways to arrange whatever you're tapping there. You got different button and knob arrangements. There's a few other games that explore some other formations and do something totally new off of that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
absolutely.
You could say that there's only so many ways you can do touchscreen mechanics, but beyond just mechanics, I mean, there's a whole lot to explore as far as genres and aesthetics go. Like going back to the start with Theatrhythm, you make a little fun fantasy RPG thing and tie that into the mechanics. There's a lot of different directions you can go.
And even to this day, we don't see too many hybrids of like role-playing games and music games. It's still like relatively uncommon. So yeah, there's plenty of room for that to grow, right? That's pretty interesting. I see developers really going hard on telling like their own stories via the genre. There's plenty of like indie takes on like established genres, but even something as basic as like Trombone Champ, which is like super ubiquitous and popular nowadays, something as basic as that proves there's plenty of ground to cover, right? There's plenty of places to explore, because like the idea is so simple, so it's like one of those things. It's like, wow, like I can't believe we didn't think of this before, right? And furthermore, I think there's other avenues for the genre to go. Like maybe a game could focus on a specific cultural history, like maybe it could explore some other like types of music that aren't very well represented, so on and so forth. I would also imagine that further genre experimentation will happen as well. I think, from my understanding, there are some indie games experimenting with hybridizing fighting games and music games, so that seems to be like a burgeoning thing. Again, going back to like see like anime characters like come alive, I could see devs maybe exploring face tracking or like maybe even hand tracking to like some degree. So like integrating the player into the action, perhaps.
Oh yeah, there's been sort of a precedent for some of that coming into play now, and there's a lot of different ways you could build off of that. So I'd love to see something go on that. I mean, we've already talked about how big the whole VR explosion is, and people doing self-expression that way. There's a whole lot there just waiting to happen. I think if the right opportunity's there.
I think so too. Yeah, like we've seen like our friends like really get into like VR chat and stuff like that. So things are just going to take off further. Another kind of big enduring question is, do you have any guilty pleasure / favorite songs?
So I've got my old DDR standbys just through over the years. Like one I did way back in the day was Tsugaru. That's another one of those kind of overplayed songs, but hey, it's a fun song. It's a fun chart. Like it's the best when you get that sort of combination. It's a fun song, but then they do some really cool things with it.
Yeah.
Like another one of my favorites is, I think it's Condor from DDR 2013. This is pretty much my go-to starter song when I'm just starting out a new set. It's got a lot of fun, twisty stuff going on. It's got some fun, interesting rhythm beats, and it's just a good little fun experience.
Oh, yeah.
And let's see, let's actually go into a little realm different from DDR. From DJ Max, Fermion was one of my favorite there.
That's
got
a
all
banger,
this.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you got some super high energy, like electric beats going on. I think actually I made a custom DDR chart for the song at one point.
Oh, did you? Yeah, that's cool.
There's a lot of really fun stuff and rhythms to play off that. So definitely another fave there. So what are a couple of your faves just through the years?
In terms of Konami's Bomani, in terms of Konami's Bomani brand, my most guilty pleasure song is Flower, which is sort of infamous. It's a high energy track. It has a reputation among the rhythm game community for being overplayed. So I'm actually self-conscious about picking it in public. Though I think like in general speaking, like no one actually cares. Maybe they're silently judging me. I don't really know. But yeah, Flower has a reputation for being in everything. It's even in like non-Konami games like Taiko no Tatsujin, so it's kind of funny. And I don't just like it because I'm into flowers. That's not entirely it. It's actually a good song. I swear, it's a good song. I swear, it's a good song. Another zany guilty pleasure song is from DDR X3. And it's named Unbelievable Sparky Mix, partially because of its really silly chorus, which I can attempt to sing right now. I need to summon the power of Benjamin to do this one. Give me a second.
Believe. Benjamin believes in you.
I think I finally got the willpower to do it. Okay, are you ready? Because You've opened up my eyes, you're so unbelievable. I'm floating on cloud nine and it feels so wonderful. You're like a mystery, this love is incredible. I just can't believe, amazed by it all.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I played that one a bunch. It's actually kind of hard. It's like easier than like some of the prior songs, but it's still kind of tricky. It's a hard one. There's a lot. It's very very dense. Yeah, there's other ones. Oh my god. There's one in pop and music named Sayonara Heaven. It's got some pretty eclectic instrumentation, and the artist that does that, Nekomata Master, they actually have like albums on iTunes that you can pick up and listen to, and that song is part of it. Yeah, very very catchy song. Not to get too much into like the Vocaloid shenanigans, but to get too much into the Vocaloid shenanigans, there are some favorites like Lost One's Weeping. That one's a rocking track, and which actually shows up in certain Bomani games as well. Happy Synthesizer, that one's a duet. Very bouncy, and that one's a newer DDR as well. Speaking of bouncy, there's also Nice to Meet You, Mr. Earthlink. It's one of my go-tos in Project Diva. It is super over the top. The imagery is really over the top. There's like floating ramen bowls and stuff like that. It's absurd and very fun. One song that you and I like to joke about is Tricky Disco. Oh
my god, the memories.
So the funny part about the song is that it's actually not part of any stock arcade list. It's actually modded into cabinets. So like, I don't even know how this song like came about. But like, I remember like I was trying to tell you like, yo, this song is like really familiar, but I don't know where it came from. I was like, where's the song come from?
It was weird. It was just this huge thing for a while, and I could not tell you where it first sprung from, but man, it was a time. I'll tell you that.
It was everywhere. It was stuck in my head. I'm just like, where is this from? And I still don't really know the answer to that one.
it forever remains a mystery.
Yeah, it really, really does. We got some more burning questions. Do you have a dream music game or any ideas you'd like to see in a future game?
So one thing I'd love to see is kind of a return to some good old fun story-based single-player rhythm games. I mean, we already kind of touched on that with PaRappa. That's where a lot of things started. So things come in full circle. I mean, there's a lot to explore there. So even though rhythm mechanics, you've got only so many ways you can arrange things, even in the games we've already done, we've had all these different visual displays, like whether we've got things scrolling up or down on a track, going outward from the center, or just kind of going all over the screen. There's plenty of places to still explore there. And no matter what mechanics like that you do, I think there's always going to be a place for some solid themes and some aesthetics and something to kind of draw people in with something where you can go ahead and get started. It doesn't need to be anything super complicated. But if you want to do something a little bit fancier, you could ramp things up over time. So it might need to be a little bit smaller scale, but there's still new games being developed and crowdfunded that are exploring some of this right now.
Yeah, I think those are really good points to make. There's a lot of room for experimentation, which is what draws us as a genre. And like, just because like we've seen like tracks, like linear tracks and scrolling notes before, doesn't necessarily mean there aren't other ways to like explore the genre, right? So that's absolutely true, what you're saying. During the PokePals podcast, I mentioned that a music game featuring various Pokemon tracks would be fun to see. We were joking about Taiko no Tatsujin crossed with Pokemon, and there's a lot of banger tracks in that series. Like, I mean, now we're about to have like 9 generations worth of songs, right? Of like champion themes and battle tracks and chill overworld tunes, and there's all sorts of things that you could include in there. But just in general speaking, I would like to see like Nintendo flex their history. There's a lot of songs in like Smash Brothers, but outside of like fighting in stages and just kind of like listening through the jukebox, I feel like there could be other ways to like explore that history, right? And furthermore, I kind of would like to see like a musical journey of sorts, like maybe someone like traveling the world and like learning to play songs, or exploring their history via music, something narrative based, right? Which is basically what akin to what you've been saying. But yeah, there's a lot of some cool opportunities, as it were. So we've addressed all sorts of oddballs and obscurities, but do you feel there's a good starter game?
It's kind of difficult because arcades really aren't as much of a thing anymore, and that's where a lot of these things got started. Mm-hmm. But it's just going to come down to what's accessible to you. What consoles do you have? You could just search for something and see what you come across. I mean, of the things we've talked about, that new Theatrhythm game is coming down the line. That might be a fun place to start, especially if you've done a little Final Fantasy and want something familiar.
Theatrhythm Final Barline's definitely going to be pretty all-encompassing and welcoming, I feel like. Because, I mean, the overworld tracks in, like, Current Call aren't, like, overwhelming. So there's, like, there's a wide range of difficulties on top of that as well. Taiko no Tatsujin in general is pretty cool, too, I think, as a starting point. Though I think some of the appeal might be lost without the actual drum controller. You can still kind of play it as, like, a button-based rhythm game, right? But I would definitely agree with Theatrhythm. I think that's like a big thing. I think we've covered a lot of ground. We should probably get out of here before the actual Fine Time crew cuts our mics. Ampy, thank you so much for joining. Appreciate your insight and your history. Thanks a bunch.
Thanks again for having me on. This is something that's been a pretty big part of my life, so I really appreciate the chance to just get a couple things out there and have a good time. Have a fine time, if you will.
Have a fine time, as it were. Yeah, thank you. And thanks to those who are listening. You can follow the show on Fine Time Podcast on Twitter. Our own socials will be in the description. And with that, thank you for listening. And we'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Benjamin's hot.
Benjamin. To think, who knew he had such power?
You know, Benjamin's actually kind of a weird anomaly because like most JRPG hero names were like really short at the time in like 92, right? There were like 4 or 6 characters, and then Benjamin's like, surprise suckers!
Yeah, we're going with 8. Yeah, that's double what some games give you. You're not getting that in Saga 2. That's 2 whole characters right there.
God damn, that's pretty baller.